Hi, I'm Nikhil Velji, and I'll be doing my interpersonal conflict on a coach and a player having a conflicting viewpoint on where the player should be in the lineup. Hi, coach. I'd like to thank you for meeting with me here today.
No problem.
We seem to disagree on my position on this team.
Yes, it seems like we do.
My perspective on this is I've been an offensive player my entire life. I put up 103 points last year. Now I was tied for third in league scoring. What I'm getting at here is I've always been an offensive player. I have the instinct of an offensive player, like Bob McKenzie said. I'm slated to go third in my draft class right now, and I'd see where you're coming from if our team wasn't being successful. But last year we surprised so many people. We went to Game 7 at the WHL Finals. I don't really understand your viewpoint on this, coach.
Well, I do believe you're a great offensive player, but I'm not just thinking what can benefit this team. I'm thinking about the long run and you as a player.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the long run too, coach. And I've been compared to guys like Patrick Kane and Taylor Hall. Patrick Kane, on the first hand, he was picked first overall in his draft class, and he's an elite NHL player at this point. He's a naturally offensive guy. Dale Hunter, one of the best coaches in the OHL history, was his coach in London in 2007. Kane was put in an offensive role throughout the season. He was put in his number one team's power play. He was always the extra attacker, always starting the offensive zone. He put up 145 points in his draft year. That's an insane amount of points. Like I suggested, Patrick Kane was picked first overall in his draft class. And that's one thing I wanted too. And then you look at a guy like Taylor Hall. Taylor Hall put up 106 points in his draft year. His coach also put him in an offensive role, playing on the power play, starting shifts in the offensive zone. Taylor Hall went first overall in his draft class. His team won the Memorial Cup, and he was actually MVP. If you look at both Kane and Hall right now, Kane has won 2 Stanley Cups. Taylor Hall is a leading scoring left wing in the NHL. So my dream, since I was a kid, was to be selected first overall in my draft. I mean, nobody dreams of being selected second. Everyone dreams of being the first overall pick. So, coach, I don't see how putting me in a defensive role could make me go higher in my draft class.
Draft position isn't everything. You've seen players like Nail Yakupov. He put up flashy numbers in juniors, but his coach didn't develop his two-way game properly, and he's now having trouble adjusting to the NHL game. On the contrary, you have a guy like Corey Perry, who always was an offensive player, but in his draft year, he was put in a more defensive role, and although he was picked late in the first round, his team won the Memorial Cup that year, and he's now one of the game's elite, and that's what I want from you. You are one of the best players I've ever coached, and I want to see you amount to something.
I see where you're coming from, coach, but look at it this way. We have a really good 6'7" defensive center in Adams. Adams was the Scholastic CHL Defensive Player of the Year. He shut down the league's best player and in the playoffs last year, and we beat them. I just don't see how putting Adams in an offensive role and myself in a defensive role could alter our draft standings and lead us to a better finish in the Memorial Cup standing. Well, why can't we just model ourselves like the Vancouver Canucks did in 2011? They had Henrik Sedin as their first line center. Henrik Sedin was on the first unit power play. Henrik Sedin started all the shifts in the offensive zone. And on the contrary, Ryan Kesler was a second line center. Ryan Kesler actually won the Defensive Player of the Year that year, or for forwards, obviously. And the Canucks made it to Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Finals. I think it's a really good model to follow. Coach, don't you see what I'm coming from?
The Canucks. The Canucks also used Henrik Sedin as a penalty killer. He also took crucial face-offs in the defensive zone. I'm glad that you brought up Hendrik Sedin. He was picked second overall in his draft class, and despite being an offensive player, his coach developed him to be a strong two-way player. Now he's pretty much a lock to be in the Hockey Hall of Fame.
If you put it to me that way, Coach, I can see where you're coming from. Henrik Sedin was an idol of mine growing up. I watched pretty much every single one of his games. So I can compromise here. I'm willing to play more defensive minutes if you could let me play my offensive minutes like I did last year.
Yeah, that's a great idea. How about I keep you on the first unit power play and as the team's #1 offensive player, just as long as you in return play some minutes on the penalty kill.
That works with me, Coach. I really like that idea, really. Just don't expect me to really block any shots. But I really do like the fact that you trust me on the penalty kill as a player. I mean, that's really high regard. I mean, not many coaches trust their #1 offensive player to kill penalties, especially on a team that looks like they're going to contend for the Memorial Cup. Really have a suggestion, so if you could just listen to it. I know Adams is a really good defensive center, and he likes to play on the penalty kill as well. So maybe we can move you to the wing on the first unit penalty kill, so Adams can take all the face-offs, whereas I can support him on taking the point and maybe taking some turnovers and maybe scoring some shorthanded goals.
Don't take this personally. You are one of my favorite players. I give you a hard time because you're extremely talented. Seeing you succeed brings happiness to me. I remember coaching Steven Stamkos, and we went through a similar process, and look at him now.
Yeah, Steven Stamkos is a hell of a player. No worries though, Coach. I didn't really take any of this stuff personally, and I'm glad that you brought Steven Stamkos into this because, like I compared myself to, and scouts do as well, they compare me to a guy like Taylor Hall. Taylor Hall, although he's one of my favorite players, he really is more so of a one-way player. That's probably why he didn't make the Canadian Olympic team last year. Stamkos, on the other hand, was obviously a lock. He just had a freakish injury which prevented him from playing. But developing me as a right winger, just like Stamkos did, adds versatility and makes scouts appeal to you more. You look at a team like Florida, who may be at the bottom of the standings. They have Sasha Barkov and Nicholas Bukestad down the middle. If they're picking first overall, and I'm just a pure center, I don't think they'd pick me. I mean, they're looking for some wingers. And if you show me how to play the right wing, if you teach me that position and develop me there, maybe I can play both and maybe turn into a player like Tyler Seguin or Steven Stamkos, where I can play both positions and be effective at both. And teams like Florida, who need that kind of player, would appeal to it.
Well, that's great. The team is really looking good this year. With you and Adam down the middle, we're destined for a Memorial Cup victory.
Yeah, I'm with you, Coach. Winning the Memorial Cup has always been one of my dreams. I've watched some of my favorite players win it on TV, and it'd be such a great accomplishment. And winning it with this group of guys and you, for everything you've done for me over the last few years, would be an absolute dream come true.
It's my pleasure, kid. Like I said, you're going to be a special player. See you at practice.
Thanks, Coach.